Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Mob Psycho 100 Season 2, Episode 5. When we last left our heroes, Mob and Reagan had gone on a job to exorcise some girl, and they learned that she was possessed by the spirit of the most powerful psychic of, the 20th century, who had become a total, misanthrope later on, and willingly became an evil spirit just to be a dick. I don't know. Mogami is just kind of a dick, is his whole character. Um, so yeah, and then in the course of the battle, Mogami dragged Mob into a parallel world where Mob created by Mogami, where Mob had no powers. And that's where we open with this episode. And I just like a formatting thing for the episode. I really like the way that the black bars on either side of the screen just emphasize the isolation of Mob in Mogami world. I'm a little confused they don't ever get rid of it once Mob remembers his real self. Once Dimple shows up, I'm pretty sure the black bars are still there, which is kind of weird because now they're all of a sudden not emphasizing that isolation because that isolation is no longer there. But whatever, I can forgive it. But anyway. So Mogami's plan, we learn, is to essentially create a parallel universe with, copies of awful people from the real world in order to convince Mob that the world is just garbage. And the problem with Mogami's plan, of course, and with his worldview as a whole, is that while there may be awful people in the world, there are also great ones. And by removing all the good people Mob met in his life, he's not creating an accurate facsimile of life. And of course, as soon as Dimple shows up and reminds Mob of everything that's real, of the people in his life that cares about him and who he cares about, and who he is changed for the better, and who have changed him for the better, as soon as Dimple does that, all of Mogami's power goes away. At least his power over Mob. He's still spiritual power, but his power over Mob's heart snaps. He's got nothing as soon as Mob remembers, oh right, there are good people in the world. His worldview just can't hold up to reality, and that's a great message to take away from this episode. People are good. There are good people in the world, and Mogami is just wrong. He's patently incorrect. But anyway, we then get the full version of Mogami's backstory, which isn't much different from what Dimple told us last week, with one crucial difference. His mother's illness was a result of Mogami overusing his psychic powers, which led him toward becoming the path of an evil spirit in the name of his own selfishness. And I'm not a particularly big fan of Mogami's backstory, just because I don't think it makes a lot of sense. The way his backstory is set up is that he goes from my powers are responsible for the death of someone I loved, to I should just keep on using my powers. I don't see the point A to point B. I feel like there's a really big middle step in there that's just skimmed over. But whatever. In case you can't tell, I'm a little disappointed that I'm not as happy with this episode as a lot of people seem to be. I'll touch on that more later on. I do really like the episode. I think it's a great episode, especially animation-wise. You cannot top this episode. I don't think anything will ever be as good animation-wise as this episode. Anyway, on to things I like. I love Reagan's completely unshakable faith in Mob. Dimple's like, dude, we gotta get out of here. Mob is gonna die. Mob is already dead. There's nothing we can do. And Reagan's like, Mob won't lose. He's Mob. That complete faith. Reagan's whole, sometimes the shady con man, sometimes just a good dad dynamic with Mob is probably my favorite in the show. So I love seeing that good dad side of him just up to 11. And I love how much faith Reagan has in him. But anyway, Mob being subjected to Mogami's awful worldview for 6 months finally cracks him, and he gives in to using his negative emotions and regains his powers against Minori and her band of bullies. And right as Mob is about to do some serious damage to them, and he gets a fake apology out of Minori that I will come back to later when we get to the final apology later on, and my dissatisfaction with that. You'll see that in a little bit, though. Anyway, that's getting ahead of myself. As he's beating up these guys, Dimple shows up, and reminds Mob of all of the people, all of the good people in his life. And what's really important to me here is that what this scene shows that like the Mob's positive emotions undoes in like 5 seconds what it took Mogami's negative emotions 6 months to do. So like, and that's something we kind of see here as later on in the fight scene we'll get to. Mob for the first time uses his 100% form with positive emotions. Whenever he's done it, whenever he did it against Dimple and against Teru, and I think that's the only maybe the fight with the first claw guy who came to capture Ritsu. I think those are the only times he actually fully went all 100%. I'm not even sure he does it on the claw guy fight. Those are very much powered by negative emotions, so we've never really seen him go all out with positivity before, and there's a huge difference. He always looks a little horrifying in his negative emotion state, but here he just looks like a prettier version of Mob. And I think that is kind of one of the episode's main themes, that positive emotions are just like more powerful than negative ones. And afterwards, as Mogami is now like freaking out, the like Mob is not getting the message that Mob is supposed to be getting from all this. And you know, with a little help from his friends, Mob learns what the lessons of all this has always been, that people can change as a result of their circumstances. That, you know, Mob being subjected to torment after torment over 6 months, he did change very, very briefly into a far worse person than he wants to be. And also, he's changed over the past 16 episodes, from the kind of like shy little boy he was in episode 1 to now, you know, a fairly shy little boy, but now a shy little boy with a lot of friends who are there for him, and help boost his confidence, and who he has helped, you know, save in others. He's done so much good for so many people. Like, Dimple was just like a bag of shit when we first met him, as was Teru, and then Ritsu went off the deep end for a little while before Mob brought him back. So, you know, we definitely have seen throughout the show how much Mob has changed people. And we've seen how Mob has been changed by people like the Body Improvement Club, by Reigen, who is directing Mob's immense power into like helping people. Yeah, these are themes that have been throughout the entire show, and it's nice to see that like these aren't themes that one just like threw out. He never really drew attention to them throughout the show, but they've always kind of been there, like seeping beneath the surface. And even like all through like the fight scene, Mogami keeps trying to be like, oh no, the world is pointless, you know, it's just meaningless and full of pain, and Mob just is unaffected by it. Once he's been reminded of the people who care about him, Mob cannot be thrown into despair. And that's why I love my dork son. Yeah. And then he has this gigantic fight with Mogami and all the spirits Mogami's taken on over the years in order to finally like exorcise Minori. And the whole fight with all the spirits, like especially after Mogami is defeated and it's just like the spirits running rampant, is breathtaking. Like I can't even describe it. It's gorgeous, jaw-dropping. I got nothing. But after all of that, we get a glimpse of what I think is Mob's soul. A pure white silhouette against, like, the void of space. And Mogami comments on it, like, so this is what you really are, or this is, when you tear away your body, this is what's left, or something. I don't know if that's as simple as, like, Mob is just an incessantly good kid and nothing can be done to, you know, corrupt him. Or if it has some deeper meaning as to, like, some deeper secret within Mob. But, you know, if it is that last one, I'll be on the lookout for that in future episodes. But anyway, after that, Mob comes back to himself. Mogami leaves Minori, you know, a little upset that Mob has taken the path that Mogami did not want him to, but will still watch over him to see how his path turns out. But before he can do that, the ex-Claw Spirit Tamer steals Mogami's spirit, and we know he's not a member of Claw now, so I don't know if that's going to come back to bite us in the ass sometime later, but also the same guy did help Dimple break through Mogami's defenses, so I think he's on the up and up now. He's certainly not like a saint or anything. He's not a bad guy right now, which taps into the arc's overall themes about the ability of people to change, because the same guy was also a total piece of shit, but then he had to, then probably as a result of Reagan's utter dressing down at the end of the Claw arc, he reevaluated his life and is now a legit psychic. But then we have what's probably the weakest story beat of the episode for me, and I know I've seen a lot of like praise for this scene, and the character animation for Asagiri at the end is really good. But her redemption is just a little weird to me. Like, it fits into the theme of like everyone being able to change and everyone is capable of goodness, but we didn't really get to see Asagiri reckon with who she was before she changed. You know, the apology is just too similar to the scene where she begs Mob for forgiveness in Mogami world for me to really like believe in it. Because of that, it kind of feels like she changed out of like a fear of Mob's power, and that is bad. That is counter to everything the arc is saying. But it's not that people change out of fear; they change because people just change. Like maybe she changed after seeing Mob save her, despite how awfully Minori treated her. But I would have liked for one thing, I would have liked it to have been like a tearful thank you. I think would have worked better to show that like she recognizes, like she's starting to comprehend that like she's just been a terrible person and is starting to change. I think a starting to change there would have worked better than the sense that the show wanted us to believe that she had already changed. So yeah, that could have been better, I think. It just didn't really work for me at all. Not at all, but it just didn't really work for me. But hey, the dad lived, despite getting stabbed in the gut by Mogami-possessed Minori. He's okay. He's in the hospital, so not perfectly okay, but he's a little okay. And he's funding the Psycho Helmet religion, so that's a thing now. I don't know if they're gonna come back in a big way. I don't know how they would. But anyway, this episode was a lot. The animation was just perfect. You know, there's literally nothing else that could be said about it. The story, though, wasn't quite as perfect, but it was still really fucking good. It was just incredible. You know, it was a little hampered by the sense that, like, I feel like one wanted Mogami's backstory to make him more sympathetic, but it really didn't. And again, that bit about Asagiri at the end, Minori at the end, just didn't quite work out for me. The Claw guy, though, got the theme of the arc better, I think, than Minori did. But everything else was incredible. You know, like Mob continuing to hold strong to his ideals despite everything Mogami threw at him. You know, Mob specifically learning the exact opposite of what Mogami wanted him to was just so perfect. I love Mob so much. Wow, it was a really good episode. But yeah, next time we have something completely different. So I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episode and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!